newest resident, Mo, formerly from Chicago. I think it might pain her a little bit for me to say that. But Mo is very close and near and dear to my heart. And yeah, she's new to our state, and we're happy to have her and her service experience to give us her experience, strength, and hope. And so without further ado, I turn it over to Mo.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome, Mo.
It's like a show over here. Hi, I'm Mo. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 26, 2006. And I just got a new home group last night here in Little Rock. It's a barely legal young people's meeting. We meet on Tuesday nights and Saturday nights in Little Rock. I don't know the address, but if you're ever in town, I'll get it for you. It's on Kavanaugh, whatever. I just use my map. I have no clue what I'm going to talk about, so I will share in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about my drinking and what it was like, because there's so many gifts that sobriety has given me that I definitely don't have enough time to talk about those. But so my story, I started drinking at 13, and even before that, I always felt really uncomfortable. So the things that I was bringing to the table to my first drink were like fear of people, of everyone. Quick story about that is when I was younger, I don't know how old, probably like 8, my parents invited some family friends over for dinner, and upon the doorbell ringing, I ran into the family room and hid behind one of the chairs, like one of the recliner chairs, for most of the night. And I was just terrified of people, even though these were people that my parents trusted and invited into our home. So that's one thing I'm bringing to the table. And second of all, I always felt really uncomfortable in my own skin. I just never felt okay with who I was and what I was doing, and where I was and who I was with. And a lot of restlessness, right? Like internal restlessness. And I brought all those things and like a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Like starting to feel a little bit of depression as a high school or like as a teenager, and like weird anger bouts, and like a good solid Irish temper. And so those were just a handful of things that I brought to my first drink. And when I had my first drink, I remember it was white wine from a box, Franzia style. And that's really important because the beginning of my drinking looked exactly like the end of my drinking. So I was real classy drinking out of a box. And I just remember, I mean, first of all, like that's not the most delicious beverage to drink, but as a 13-year-old especially, it was terribly disgusting. But I remember as soon as I drank it, it warmed me from the inside out, even though it was chilled because it was white wine, obviously. Stay classy, San Diego. But like it warmed me, and it started to fill all of these voids, right? Like all of this fear started to disappear, and this restlessness and this discomfort with myself. All of a sudden I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm good with this. And all of a sudden I'm really liking myself, and I'm like, let's drink more, you know? And I don't know about you young alcoholics, but being a teenage alcoholic, it was not always easy to secure alcohol. And so I didn't start out drinking all the time. I would drink whenever I could. And whenever I could, I would drink as much as I could. And at first I thought it was because I didn't know the next time I was going to drink. So I just fill her up and go to town to like store some for the next, I don't know what I was thinking really, but that's also what my drinking looked like for the rest of my drinking. I would drink as much as I could, as fast as I could, because I wanted to get as drunk as I could. And that progressed for the next few years. I remember trying to hide it, like even as a young alcoholic, trying to hide it, but also pushing the envelope and sometimes sneakily drinking around my family, but like trying to be cool. And by be cool, I mean like stay under the radar, not like cool kids cool, like be cool, you know, like don't make a scene. I always ended up making a scene because I always went past that line, you know, like this line that I set for myself, like only drink so many drinks. I was at a meeting earlier tonight and we were reading the big book where it talks about like 3 drinks, no more. And in college, my friends, actually it wasn't my friends, it was me. We came up with a saying when we were traveling abroad, and it was, we would go out for 2 pints, no more, no less. It was always more. It was never just 2. It was always more. But I was like, if I just drink 2, right, like that's normal. That's okay. I'll be socially accepted and fly under the radar. But I always missed that mark, because what I later learned is that, well, I knew this at the time, but I loved to black out. And I didn't know that most normal people didn't like to do that. But I loved to black out because it completely got rid of that discomfort and that restlessness that I felt with myself. I was just like gone, right? Like I was still alive and going through the motions, but I didn't remember anything. And that was always, I felt, a beautiful excuse for like behaving the way that I did when I was drinking. Because what that looked like for me was like getting in fights, verbal altercations, physical altercations, like starting drama with people, perpetuating the drama with people. And I got to college and I had no more use for my parents. Like they dropped me off at college and I was like, see ya. And I'm the oldest child. And so my mom was like really heartbroken about it, right? Like sending her oldest out of the nest. And I was just like, bye. I don't need you anymore. And that's also because I'd found the party scene. You know, like I pay $5 for a cup and I can drink as much as I want all night long. And like it says in Bill's story, I had arrived. That was me getting to college. I had arrived. I'd found my scene. I'd found all the answers to everything. And so that's how I drank. I drank as much as I could, as fast as I could, as often as I could, because it was easier to get at that time. And anything that got in the way of my drinking, bye. I had no more need for you, right? Like, so my parents were the first to be bye. Later it was school. And by later, I mean like a year and a half later, it was school. School was getting in the way of my drinking. That whole like waking up, going to class, studying when I could be out partying, like, nope, no more need for this. Work, I showed up drunk a bunch and they were like, have you been drinking? I was like, no, I was out last night, but I showered. And they say, you smell like a bar room. I was like, well, I don't know, must have been some of you. And you know, just like bye, I don't need to work anymore then. I definitely needed to work. I needed the money, but like it got in the way of my drinking. So like, bye. My roommate was a normal person and she started to judge me. Some of that may have been perceived, but like it was also probably pretty real. So like, bye, don't need you anymore. And so like my life just got a lot smaller, and it got to a point where I I started to go crazy, and I thought that something was really wrong with me. Um, like I thought I needed to be locked up somewhere. I thought I don't know. I thought my life was over. And so I finally asked for help, and um and I went into an outpatient program. There's like what actually happened there is like a whole long story in itself. Like I had a panic attack. I finally said, okay, I have a problem. Um, that's a whole long story for another day. But the point that like I really want to drive home is that I finally asked for help. I had that moment, that like window of clarity, of opportunity. And immediately after admitting to all the truth of how much I'd been drinking, of course I was like, wait, it actually wasn't that bad. I want to stay at school. And they were like, you have a problem. I was like, wait, I'll be okay for another month and a half. They sent me home, which I'm really grateful for now. But at the time I was like, I just want to stay and party with my friends. So I go to this outpatient program, and I'm convinced, because this is my terminal uniqueness. I'm 22 years old. I just dropped out of college, and I'm convinced that in the state of Illinois, probably the whole entire world, that I'm the only 22-year-old girl in the history of the history to get sober, right? To stop drinking. I'm like, nobody does this. Why would anyone stop drinking? And on my first day of treatment, this 21-year-old girl runs up to me. She'd also just dropped out of school, and she's like, hi, I'm Katie. I've been sober for 2 weeks. I go to these meetings. I have a sponsor. We read the book. I've met friends. We do things. We go to a fellowship. Blah, 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 blah. You know, like that newcomer that's like just gotten on fire with sobriety, like attacking to the brand newcomer. So immediately that uniqueness was smashed, and I found this beautiful fellowship, and she really took me into the fold. And there I just, man, there I started my journey of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that girl, she's not sober anymore, and I don't really keep in touch with her for a number of reasons. She knows I'm still sober, but I don't know like why I got it and why she didn't. And I'm not going to spend too much time like thinking about that, because I can really get into like the rabbit hole of alcoholic brain with that. But I just, whenever I think of her, I'm incredibly grateful that that I'm still here, and that sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous have given me this incredible life that I have today, which involves, man, like I said, there's not enough time to get into everything, but I moved back in with my family during outpatient program, and that was like a really difficult journey, because I was brand new sober, and my mom has been sober my whole life, but she's not practicing recovery, if you catch my drift. So the first few months living together were really difficult, and I remember one time she yelled at me that I should call my sponsor, and I yelled back that she should get a sponsor. And yeah, I don't recommend that, but like that was one of those blow-ups that we had to have in order to come to the realization of like, okay, we're not going to work each other's program, you know. And that was a lesson that I've carried throughout the rest of my journey and through all of my relationships, because 95+% of the people that are in my life are also in recovery. And so I can't work anyone else's program, you know, like I got to focus on me and what I'm doing. And you guys, so much has happened in my life. Oh man, Alcoholics Anonymous is so great. I went back to school. That was like 5.5. I'm going to just skip around to give you some highlights and lowlights in life, real talk. At 4 or 5 years sober, I went back to school, and I showed up to class like I was taught to show up to AA. And I sat in the front, and I utilized my teachers of each subject as if they were my sponsors of each subject. And I asked questions, and I utilized their office hours as if it was sponsorship time sitting in with the big book, like I got to know my classmates, and we went for like fellowship, which was like study hall or studying together or whatever. And I just applied, I applied everything that I learned in the beginning. And I graduated, and I graduated from the school that I dropped out of, the school in the town that I hit my bottom in. And that was a really difficult year. That was the first time that I'd moved in sobriety, and I only lived like 100 miles away from Chicago. But it was a really difficult time, but I got real close with a few people. Shout out to Kristen. I would call her like to and from driving like every weekend. And like that relationship and a few other relationships like really saved my life. And I was also, because I was alone, I was not forced, I mean, it was like kind of by choosing, into a relationship with God, because every day it was me and God. Like I literally had no fellowship. I had no social support group. It was me and God. And I grew my relationship with God there. I got mad at God. We had arguments. And by we had arguments, I mean, like I was yelling at God out loud. I'm sure my neighbors thought I was crazy, but I was crazy trying to find this relationship with this higher power that now I'm so grateful for that difficult time, because it has saved me, and not necessarily like saved my physical life, but saved my emotional and spiritual life through a lot of other difficulties in my life. I moved back home, and I moved in with a boyfriend, and a few years later that relationship didn't work out. And so like I was on my own again, and that was a really difficult time. And I had to get like back into the program and back into service. And I had to like get back in the book, and show up for my sponsees and be actively seeking them out, not waiting for them to call me. Cause I was in a lot of pain. I was hurting. And so I was actively seeking them out and rebuilding my fellowship. And then a couple years ago, my sponsor was in, this is really tough for me to talk about, so I'm going to like try to get through it. But my sponsor was in a really terrible accident that left her in a coma for a few months. And I was devastated. And I didn't want a new sponsor. I didn't want to do Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just felt really lonely. And I bring that up for a few reasons. A, because it's part of my story, and B, because this group, Fifth Dimension, was there for me the whole time. I had a hard time leaving my house, and so sometimes I would just log on and just sit on here for hours, with this wacky group of people from all over the world. And like this specific fellowship right here saved my life and helped me get through that. And I also bring that up because a lot, like, life doesn't stop happening just because we get sober. Like, life definitely keeps going, and a lot of us experience really difficult and grief and like traumatic times in our lives. And a lot of that, especially getting sober young, is going to happen to us in sobriety. And there's this amazing fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've seen people get through anything and everything sober. And it's by latching on to the people and just grasping on for support and letting other people love us when like we don't know what the fuck else is going on, you know, and I'm really grateful for that because there's been other really difficult times. This move is like, I live in Arkansas now. Words I never thought I was gonna say. And like I haven't even been here a week officially, but like I miss home. You know, like all the meetings are different, the people are different, their accents are different. I kind of love the accents, but like, get out of here. But like, it's different. It's all different. And I don't know about you, but like this alcoholic right here doesn't do so hot with change. And this is like, everything's new. It's all change. And, but like, I'm not the first person to move in sobriety. I'm not even the first person to move to Little Rock, Arkansas in sobriety. Like I'm not special. And so like I tap into that fellowship. And I went to a meeting last night and I met a new girl and I was like, hey, I'm basically new too. Will you be my friend? Legit words out of my mouth. Will you be my friends? Real quick, and then I'll close with this because it's another huge part of my life, is I just had the honor of being the co-chair of the the 59th ARKYPAA host committee. And it was a really long, difficult year, but let me tell you that service has absolutely saved my life every single time. And even when it gets really difficult and it's like herding cats, trying to put together like minutes and reports and encouraging people to do stuff, like it can be really difficult, but these relationships we build with one another and these skills we learn to be able to bring outside of Alcoholics Anonymous are they're priceless. They're absolutely priceless. And I see so much more beauty and gratitude in getting through the really difficult times, whatever those are, whether it's a fight with my mom, whether it's, you know, the accident of my sponsor, whether it's hosting ARKYPAA, like getting through all those difficult times makes the great times even better. And I don't know, I'm super grateful, and I'm going over time, so I'm gonna stop now. But man, this just really filled me with a ton of gratitude. Like only a few weeks after I was like, FAA, I'm so angry at you. You know, it comes and goes. If you don't like AA, that's totally cool. Welcome to the club, but stick around because there will be days when you're like super grateful for this crazy thing that saves our lives. So I love you all. Thank you so much.